Hi everyone, my name is Atila Kawauti, and today I'll show you how I painted the Adamantine Blacksmith, which is a very strong lady. I love the fact that she looks very comfortable in a resting pose while holding an anvil that should weigh about what, 300 kilograms or 650 pounds? I mean, I can barely hold my 1-year-old son for 5 minutes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and let's begin! So the first step is always to apply primer. I love to use black primer, my good old Vallejo matte and black primer. Next, I'm going to use white paint coming from above, using an airbrush to create my pre-shading, aka Zenithal highlights. This is what the miniature looks like after these two steps. Now let's start with the base coats. The first one I'll apply is Imperial Purple from Vallejo. This will be the base I use for the red. This part of the miniature I'm going to do from the darkest color to the lighter. Now for the skin I'm going to do a bit different. I'm going to place all the shadows first, but I'll keep the lighter areas untouched. Here I'm using Indian Shadow from scale 75. And some areas we can use part of the pre-shading to help the final painting, but you don't need to do it in the entire miniature. Like I did in the red parts, I just covered everything with a solid layer of Imperial Purple. Of course, some of the pre-shading stays there because of the nature of the acrylic paints, which are not 100% opaque. And here I'm using another different strategy. I'm starting with the middle tone. I'm using Sahara Yellow from scale 75. And I'm not using different strategies because I'm crazy. Depending on the order you do the things, you may achieve different results. For example, on her skin. If I cover the white paint with a darker color, it will be much harder to do brighter highlights because it's harder to cover dark colors with lighter tones. So by keeping those lighter values from the pre-shading, I'll help myself with the lighter highlights in the future. And here I'm using brown leather from scale 75. And here I'm keeping the strategy of using middle tones. And if you don't know what a middle tone is, you can think about 3 tones. We have the darker one, the middle one, and the lighter one. Of course, in reality, we don't have only one middle tone because we have a lot of variations between the lighter and the darker color. But to keep it simple, the middle tones are everything that are between the darker and the lighter tone. Here I'm applying a mix of Oxide Red and Orange, both from Chimera. Since I'm doing this color scheme from scratch, I prefer to lay down all base colors, or at least most of them, to see if the distribution and the composition looks good to me. Sometimes I also do some planning using Photoshop, like this test I did before applying the colors. So here we have what the miniature looks like after laying down some base colors. And here I can check the distribution of color and it looks good for me, at least for now. We have some other colors that I left unpainted, but those will be mostly metal parts or very small parts that will be decided closer to the finish. Okay, here my initial idea was to go straight to a very light color and apply some harsh highlights. But this mixture of neon orange and white wasn't my best idea so far. The thing is, those scale 75 neon colors, or any other brand to be honest, have an atrocious coverage. So I took it to my advantage and applied this layer using stippling. This will also create a nice texture that I can decide later how much of this texture I'll keep in the final result. Here I used Bloodfast Crimson from scale 75, the fantasy line, and since this paint is very translucent, I applied it over everything. Not the entire miniature, I mean only the red parts, you got it. Here I mixed crimson red with white and I'm bringing back some of the texture. This step is completely optional. It depends on how translucent your glaze is. If it's more translucent, it will probably show through some of the previous texture. Now I'm using the red from Chimera Colors. This is a very strong color with a lot of pigment and a lot of saturation. Also, it covers a lot. So depending on how diluted you are applying, it will show more or less of the texture. Here I'm using a mix of Alderon Red with Mars Red, both from scale 75. Those paints are very translucent, so they are very good for glazing. And you can also go with different routes. For example, you can mix some yellow with red to make your own orange, or use any other pure orange. Now for the shadows, I'll apply a very subtle glaze with blue. You can also use purple if you want. At this point I mixed some of the mid-tones and I'm fixing some transitions. I'm basically using wet blending to mix the colors, which is basically mix the paint on the miniature before it dries. Here I mixed Mars Orange with a bit of yellow to apply in the lighter areas. I'm adding progressively more yellow to the mixture. Now I'm using basic flash from scale 75. And as you can see, I'm overlapping with some of the previous color. I'm not covering everything because the idea is to preserve some of the shadows. Also, keep in mind this color is also very translucent. These colors interact with each other very well, and they create a natural blend, even with a few layers. Here I mixed a bit of Indian shadow with blue, and I'm applying some deeper shadows. Now I'm applying light skin from scale 75. These white parts we preserved in the miniature will be very important now, because we're going to lay a light color over a light base. Now I'll start to mix some midtones to soften some of the transitions. Now let's shade the non-metallic gold parts. Here I'm using Dubai Brown mixed with a bit of black. Now for the lighter areas I'm using Tenier Yellow. And later, to smooth the transition, I'll mix Tenier Yellow with a bit of Sahara Yellow. And after that, I'm applying white sands for the highlights. I'll also use white sands for the edge highlights. Now let's start the silver non-metallic metal. This one will be very textured because this is a heavy used anvil. But let's start with the highlights. I'm using pure white. Next, I'll use pure black for the shadows. I'm already applying the shadows using dots. This will start to form our texture. Mixing black and white, I created a light gray, and I'm applying some mid-tones. For the leather parts, I'll use mainly two colors. This one, which is raw sienna ink, and burnt umber for the shadows, both from Liquitex. Here I'm applying Inktense Wood from Scale 75. Now I'm using Black Wash from Games Workshop. Now I'm applying this red glaze using Alderon Red from Scale 75. Here the strategy is to apply some specific areas of the skin, like the nose, cheeks, elbow and knee. And don't forget, the glaze must be very diluted and you should apply carefully and not apply it like a wash. You will load small quantities to your brush. To create even more texture, I'll use a large and beaten brush. I'll start using pure white, and here we want the paint as thick as possible. I'll also take advantage of some textures using a dry brush. Now the next kind of texture we're going to apply on this anvil is scratches. For this we're going to use a very small and fine brush. We want to do quick strokes, or else the scratch won't look as natural. You should do in random directions, and some dots will help too. I'll select a few scratches and do a black line side by side. This will create an illusion of deep scratches. Now using a smaller brush, I'm reapplying some of the textures. Now I'm applying a violet wash from Games Workshop. The idea is to cover the entire hair area. Now I'm using Mars Orange from scale 75. Here I'll create the first highlights for the hair. Each layer will be much subtle when dried, so we need to reapply a few layers to intensify the orange back. Here I'm applying the second layer of Mars Orange, but I mixed with a bit of yellow. Also important, I'm applying in a smaller area for each new layer. Now I mixed Tanier Yellow with Mars Orange and I'm applying in an even smaller area. For the gems, I'm using Imperial Purple, Alien Purple for the lighter tones, and black. At some points I'm also using pure white. The idea here is to do one gradient from light to dark on each face of the gem. Now using blue and an airbrush, I'm applying some general shadows. The floor, I'll keep it simple. I'll basically use shades of gray going from dark to light, and also taking advantage of the textures that's already there. And the last part of this tutorial will be the eyes. I'll start applying white over a black layer. This will keep the white parts not too bright. Then use pure black, I'm going to draw the iris. So this is my final result. The focal point of the miniature changes according to the angle you are looking at. In this case, from the front we have the face, and from the back we have the anvil. Since the anvil has some large plane areas, the tactic I used to create more interest was to add a lot of texture. And the only small thing I changed from my original Photoshop sketch is the strips holding the anvil. I rethought and decided it should probably be metal. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and see you in the next one. Abração e até mais!
Right and wrong, might and power. Well, that is for you to decide on your journey to Nidavellir.